Actors, we've all got issues, so let's talk about them. You're listening to Actors with Issues, a self-help podcast for actors, by actors. Hello, ladies, gents, and non-binary friends, and welcome back to another episode of Actors with Issues, a self-help podcast for actors, by actors, featuring special guests from TV, film, and Broadway. We take a deep dive into the world of entertainment and discuss what it means to be an actor today. I'm your host, Juan Ayala, and today we are joined by an actress you've seen in Head High, Breakwater, and in the new Apple TV Plus series, Chief of War. Tay, thank you so much for being here. Welcome to the show.
Hi, it's good to be here, and congratulations. You just mentioned how many episodes you've done just from COVID. Like, bless you. Thank you for creating a space for actors to really talk about the things that we go through. It's wonderful and it's glamorous, but it is work at the end of the day. So thank you for creating a platform like this.
Yeah, it's been a crazy ride for sure, and the main goal with creating the show was to sort of not just demystify the glamour of it, because yes, it is fun. The experiences are fun and they can be very rewarding and all of that, but there's so much that goes into it between the gigs, and before you even get your first rep, there's so much that goes into it, and it's just sort of like opening young actors' eyes to what it really does take. So speaking of which, so you were born and raised in New Zealand. What were those early years like for you growing up? How early did you become involved in the arts, and when did it start to feel like, oh, I can make a career out of this?
I grew up in a very old, well, I wouldn't say old school, but traditional Māori village. So where I come from, everyone practices the arts in the traditional format. So kapahaka, waiata, songs on the marae, stories and maurako, things like that. So the beauty of Polynesia, and I think what I've noticed in a lot of indigenous cultures that I've come across in my short 30 years on this earth, is that there's an innate part of the arts built into our culture, and so I was lucky enough to have that be surrounded by that growing up. So I would say the arts I've been doing my whole life, maybe just in a different format than today. And I was really lucky. It's a beautiful thing to be surrounded by your people and to be raised within your culture with such pride. And I know it took me, I think it wasn't until I left at 18 that I even realized that that was a privilege. Um, and I'm very grateful for that, because I think it's really reminded me just how lucky I am and how much gratitude I have for my upbringing and the culture that has been instilled in me with so much joy and love. But in truth, I still don't know if this is a sustainable idea or career, if I'm completely honest. I don't even know if you ever do. I mean, we're talking about being contract workers. I mean, yes, we're actors and it's amazing, but when you knuckle down to it, we're contract workers. We work contract to contract. And I think I was 15 when I decided I wanted to be an actor. I think I was 15, 16. And I went home to my mum and I was just like, "Ma, I think I want to be an actor." And she's like, "All right, baby, let's go. We're not going to stop until we see your name in lights." And we haven't, and we keep chasing, and my mother's been my greatest advocate in terms of, like, sometimes you want to give up, sometimes it's really hard, sometimes there's a year's 2 years between a job, and she's kind of been standing by my side going, "Not yet, not yet, let's keep going." And so I'm really grateful for that, because even today I still sit there. I mean, I know the show's great and I'm so grateful to be a part of it, but there's nothing about this career choice that is secure. And I think instead of feeling like this is a feasible career path, I think I just got really comfortable with taking the risk, because I just love it that much. I love telling stories, and I love being a part of a group of artists who get to recreate reality in these fantastical ways. Um, and if I wanted to do it, I just had to get comfortable with not having security, I guess.
Yeah, I feel like those early moments of like getting a co-star here, getting a line here, sort of prepares you for that a bit. But and like you said, it's like, okay, you have a series regular, so you have like, you know how long you'll be working, you know financially, if you do the math, you're like, okay, after the show's over, I'll be good for X amount of months or years, depending on how,
Yep.
how much folks get paid. But then after, you're like, okay, but what about after that? And you're always wondering, like, is there a season two? Is this a limited series? Is there something else,
Yeah. Are
but
people
it
going to
is.
like me enough to call my agent and say, "Hey, I've got a job for you"?
And it's nice to see with platforms like Apple TV and with Netflix to see a lot of the same familiar faces, which is great because it reminds me of stories of old Hollywood where you would be like a contract player, I think is what they called it. So you would be like, this is like old Hollywood. I feel like Jamie Lee Curtis has talked about it. Like pre-Halloween, she did like five different projects under Universal because that was part of the contract. But it's like a line on this show, a scene in this movie, and it felt like sort of like repertory theater. Like you see the same familiar faces sort of throughout. But yeah, with Chief of War, as we're talking about it already, with this show, seeing so much of the indigenous, native Hawaiian culture at the forefront, hearing the language, everything. It's just so cool to see these stories told. It's stories that haven't been told yet, or at least not on this scale. I'm sure there are maybe some short films or indies that have sort of explored it. I'm not sure. But seeing it sort of at the forefront, what has this whole experience been like for you being part of it? And what was your preparation like? Because it's entirely in a native language, and there's just so much that goes into this, and sort of like physically with these action scenes and everything. So, just what's this whole experience been like for you?
Oh goodness, like where do you start? It's been a journey, and I think I remember being so excited when I saw the audition because I just went, "Oh my gosh, another Indigenous story being put on. This is going on Apple TV." Like this felt like such a massive win for Indigenous storytelling. And so it was so exciting to kind of see that being put on that stage and at that platform. But if I'm being completely honest with you, I did not think I was going to get the job. I don't, I genuinely went, this is way too big of a project. I'm a nobody. Um, and you need big names. And also, I'm Māori. Like, is this really something that I should be playing? And I remember thinking, and I still do that to this day, I remember thinking, because there's this movie called Whina, which talks about one of the incredible influences and leaders in the Māori history who really changed the trajectory of Indigenous rights within Aotearoa. And so they had just recently done a movie of her, and I went, would I be comfortable? Would I be okay if a non-Māori had played Whina Cooper? Because to me, it was kind of this, it was similar in the sense like we're talking about a leader, we're talking about someone who is a role model to our Indigenous communities. Would I be comfortable with that? And so I kind of went, no, no, they're not gonna hire me. They're just doing this to look for support and get the ball rolling and probably tick some boxes because there's auditions that
Mm,
go out and it's purely just to be able to say, oh, I did a wider casting call so I can get this funding.
right.
So I kind of thought that that's what was going to happen. Would I tell you how shocked I was when I got the call saying, "Hey, we want to give you an audition"? I was sitting with my friends and I went, "I don't know if my manager's fucking with me right now. They've never done that before, but this just like what?" Um, and so going into that first callback, I was on the phone. I was on a Zoom with a couple of different creatives, including Thomas Paasabit, who's the one of the co-creators, co-writers, who's Kanaka. And I think the first thing I asked, I was like, "Why are you auditioning Maori? Like, why are you not casting only Kanaka for this story? Because it feels like it feels like a significant turning point in Indigenous storytelling, and especially for Hawaii." And he said, "We that's the goal. That's always been the goal, and that was always the priority. But we also understand that Aotearoa has built a foundation for Indigenous storytelling and has allowed more opportunities for Indigenous storytellers within Aotearoa to hone their craft, build up their experience, build their toolkit." And so we've decided to put the call out further to see if there's some support that can be had by inviting more of our Polynesian community into this project. And I went, "That's a bloody good answer. Okay, I'm here. Let's go." Um, and so I went through the audition process, and it's been really hard, I will admit, and not in the sense of the craft. I think any Indigenous person out there who gets to work on a project like this will understand me when I say that there's this subconscious link that we all have with each other. And so to walk into an Indigenous space and be surrounded by Indigenous people, the work becomes easy because everyone feels familial. It really does feel like a family. And I don't think that that's just limited to Polynesia. I think in my experience, I've had that feeling with many Indigenous communities that I've been lucky enough to meet and be a part of. Um, the hard part was overcoming the imposter syndrome. The do I have the right to tell this story? Do I have a right to be at this point? So many people have worked their butts off for years, for some generations, to be able to be at this point and tell this story. Do I have a right to be standing here today? And I remember having this conversation with Maine Kinimaka, who is Kanaka. She plays my sister Heke in the show. And we were having this conversation. I was having a bit of a sob, and I was like, sis, I just don't feel worthy of this.
Mm.
And she went, would it make you feel any better if I told you I felt the same way? And I went, what? And she went, yeah, I understand being Māori, why you might feel that, but I think even as Kanaka, I can't help but think, do I have a right to tell my ancestors' stories? Is this something that the world deserves to hear, or is this something that we have to protect and guard from outside um, manipulation, I guess? And so hearing that from her, I kind of went, oh, okay, so this is something that we're all going through. And I think I knew that intrinsically. I think it was just more saying it out loud and having these conversations with our Kanaka team and realizing that change is scary and it can be really intimidating, but it's not a good enough excuse to do it or at least try. And I think I was just very lucky that on this project, we had all the right people, Kanaka advisors, language keepers, Indigenous leaders within the Hawaii community are part of this project who were able to hold that space for us and allow us to go through that journey of self, not, I don't know if it's self-worth or I don't know, it's hard to put into words, but you know what I mean, right?
Mm. I see so many similar, like you said, there sort of feels like there's a familial thing between these different indigenous communities because there is so much shared among them. I feel the same with the Hispanic and the Latina community, um, and the indigenous community in the Americas. Um, that in speaking of of what your co-star said, it's like, am I like she probably thought, am I Kanaka enough to tell this story? And I feel like so many, um, blank American actors feel that way. They're like, am I engrossed enough in my culture to tell this story
Yeah.
in the language and the customs and all of that? And it's so much more nuanced than folks online might put it. Like, oh well, they're not this, so they shouldn't tell this story, or they're not this enough. Um, it's
Isn't that
such a
such a
complex issue, isn't it?
bizarre, isn't that such a bizarre mentality though? I mean, I think I've come across, I mean, bizarre in the sense that like I understand it, I live it every day. I'm half Pākehā, I'm half white. My dad's white, my mum's Māori, so
Mm.
like I get it. But isn't that just a sad outcome to a a history that happened so long ago that we now are forced to take into consideration that Western bloodline that we might be in, or the fact that we weren't raised within the culture or raised within the language, somehow defies our worth as Indigenous people. And I think that's a journey I'm still going through today. And I'm just like, how sad is it that our culture and our people have been so oppressed that now, regardless of, despite the fact that we carry our ancestors' blood in our veins, we're still questioning whether or not we're worthy of that title. And I hope one day that myself and many people around me realize that you don't have to prove who your worth as an Indigenous person. You carry that ancestors' blood in your veins. You are a result of their sacrifices and their work. And because of that work, these privileges you have today are something that you should celebrate and you should take advantage of because you further that narrative, you further that work that has allowed us to be where we are, standing on this land, proudly wearing our ancestors' names or
Mhm.
heritage or language or skin tone. It's such a conundrum. My mother calls it decolonizing the mind.
Oh, absolutely. That is such a great way of saying it because, I also am mixed. I am mostly indigenous of the Guatemalan and Salvadorian territories, and but both my parents are Salvadorian, but my mom's family is much darker. I got the jet black hair and the dark eyes. My dad's like siblings have lighter hair and green eyes. They clearly have like more European ancestry mixed in there. But so many times people will make a comment like that. I don't look Hispanic, especially when it comes to casting. I don't look Hispanic
Mm.
enough, or I don't look like if they're telling an immigrant
You get
story.
that
I don't.
too?
Oh, of course, it's crazy.
Oh,
So many of us get it. It's especially when a lot of the Hispanic stories that are told happen to be immigrant stories, and they expect
mm.
darker skin, more indigenous features. So I don't think I've ever played a character who's explicitly Hispanic. It's always like sort of ethnically ambiguous, which I hate that term, but it is
Yeah.
still so widely used in the industry, which is really frustrating. Um,
Yep.
but there's just such a mix within our cultures of different races being part of the same culture because of colonization. Folks came from everywhere. And for
Mm.
whatever reason, folks don't get that. It can be so frustrating. And believe me, like you said, I deal with imposter syndrome constantly, and so many of us do. I feel like it's such a universal type of thing to deal with.
No, it's nice that we're not in it alone, isn't it? It's kind
Yeah.
of nice to be like, oh, okay, we're all going through this together. Maybe if we just band together, share information, talk it out, like with your podcast, maybe we'll eventually figure it out and get over it.
Hope so.
Same.
And I'm curious with your background in a lot of activism that you do, um, how has that played a part in your career, and what do you hope is on the horizon for you and for the community and for the show?
Um, oh goodness. I mean, for the show, I'm so excited to see what this show opens up for the rest of the world, not only for just Hawaii. I think this is just the beginning for Hawaii in terms of being able to tell their stories, being leaders in the decision-making process of telling their stories and hearing their language on screen. And I'm really excited to see what else comes of that because I think being the first is hard and it comes with a lot of sacrifices and a lot of compromise and a lot of challenges. But once you do it the first time, the second time's easier. The third time's even easier. Next time, and then the fourth time, you're just like, oh, it's like breathing, and you see more and more of this happening. And so I'm excited for that. But I'm also really excited to see what who this empowers in our Indigenous communities and also our Pākehā communities as well, and our whānau who may not feel as connected to their Indigenous side, um, are empowered to, I guess, be leaders in this space, pioneer this space, open this space up to allow people to be authentically themselves and tell their stories on their terms. I think it's really exciting every time something like this comes out because it just means when it succeeds, more will come and more people will feel enabled to do it and more people might hear another's language and go, that's beautiful, I can speak mine. I mean, I found even from this show, I've kind of even more so embraced the habit of using Mareo in daily practice because it's something to be proud of. And I think sharing and celebrating other cultures also reminds you to share and celebrate your own. And so I'm really excited to see how that shifts in the world and more positivity, whether you be third generation Māori or a half caste or even be Pākehā and just be inspired to find your own heritage. Where did you come from? I think I it's really made me realize that we're all indigenous at the end of the day, and some of our whānau, some of our family, world family, have been so separated from their indigenous heritage that they've forgotten that it's there, or they don't think it's accessible. And so I hope this kind of encourages more people to go do a deep dive, find your genealogy, find where your people came from, and be proud of that and celebrate that and understand that sacrifices, so many sacrifices from those people have been made to allow you to be here today. And that's something to honor and carry in your life. And it gives you a deeper appreciation for not only the world around you, but for for the communities and the cultures that you see.
I really do hope that people do sort of watch the show and take that away, that there is so much rich history that there is to be proud of, and that, they come from that. And yeah, I feel like that's always the goal, is to make people, what is it? Laugh, cry, think. It's kind of like at least one of those three things is what we hope to take away from any form of art.
Yeah. Isn't that, I mean, that's art. I mean, I know it's TV and film and it's Hollywood and it's glitz and glam, but it's still art at the end of
Mhm.
the day. It's we're recreating the human experience for people's entertainment, and it's supposed to make you think, like you said, supposed to make you laugh, supposed to make you cry.
Yeah,
And it's really cool to be a part of a big Hollywood project that still feels like it's art.
yeah. And we have a few questions that some of our listeners submit, that is sort of the what we call the $1 million question, things that everyone wants to know. And of
Okay.
course, it's like, well, that's the $1 million question, isn't it? But the biggest one is about representation in terms of like having managers or agents. Lots of young actors will come out of their BFA program or their conservatory, um, or whatever, and they have their headshot, their resume, a few credits, and then they're kind of just left like, now what? How do I get the ball rolling? How do I book? How do I work? So, what advice do you have
I
for someone
see.
who is like just out of school and looking for a little bit of guidance on how to start that process of like booking yourself before you have a rep?
Oh man, I mean, I don't know how much insight I can offer in this sense because our industry is so much smaller here in Aotearoa, and it is really hard. And I've heard from friends it is much harder, even in Australia, to just find representation. I think what I learned, I can only speak to my own experience, but what I learned was that a lot of it is I think self-regulation, because you're going to have like take meetings, be brave, apply, like even if an agency doesn't seem like someone you want to go to, I still say go to those meetings, submit for those applications, because I think every time you have one of those meetings, every time you have a conversation, every time you have an audition, there's an opportunity to learn and hone and understand what it is you want. Because I think it wasn't until a few years later after college that I went, oh, now I know what I want, because it's easy to understand it in theory. Like you're thinking about all these ideas and you're discussing them and you're taking meetings, but it's not until you actually experience a lot more that I think my what I wanted out of a manager, what I wanted out of an agent, where I wanted to be in the industry kind of became more refined and detailed in those conversations that I was having with experts. Um, so I would say apply for every agency, and whatever comes, take the meeting. Even if you don't know if you want to be ripped by them, even if it's in an area that you're not sure you want to be in, there's always opportunities to learn more about yourself and more about the industry you're walking into from having conversations, because there's only so much that you can learn in college. I mean, college is great. It gives you great tools, a great foundation, a great community sometimes. Um, but it doesn't give you real world experience. That's something that you can only gain from being on the ground amongst the people. And it's like we know it's not easy to get a job. So what you can do, oh, well, it's not easy to get a job as an actor, but what you can do is there's so much else available in this industry. I think Luciana Buchanan, who plays Kahumanu, who I actually met her as a cast driver. So she was She just wrapped on Monkey King, and we had an underage actor on our show, and she was the super, what do you call it, chaperone slash cast driver for this kid. And I recognized it because I love the Monkey King, and I was like, oh my gosh, hi. And that's how we became friends. Um, and she was saying like jobs don't always come, but taking crew jobs, be it a coffee runner, a PA, a cast driver, there's so many things you can learn about the industry that you want to be a part of, and there's so many opportunities for friendships and networking, and you end up building this incredible support system of people who know the industry and know what it is to be working in this space. And even if it doesn't lead to a job, you're still at least in the environment you want to be in, and it kind of keeps your spirits up.
Mm.
You're just like, okay, I might not have an acting job, but I've got friends and who understand the journey and who understand the struggle sometimes. And also I can pay my bills, which is really nice. It's really nice to be able to not live on 2-minute noodles every day of the week.
Yeah, that's something that I always advise young actors about. It's like, especially if you're moving, because so many young actors will move from wherever in the States to New York or to Los Angeles, and it will feel like a foreign land because you don't know anybody. And I always tell them like, find your little community. You have to go to an acting class, make friends, and just start building your little support group, actors therapy, if anything, because
We kind of need it.
absolutely. Because you want folks to not just celebrate the wins with, but also, sort of go through the motions of the losses, the ones that you didn't book, the ones that you really, really wanted that meant something. Because it sucks acting can be a very lonely business because everyone thinks it's so competitive when in reality, most of us are not auditioning for the same roles. But,
And even if you are like, I don't know, I'm such a village community kid. But even if you are auditioning for the same roles, that doesn't mean you have to be enemies. That doesn't mean like
right.
I think when one person, especially in our ethnic communities, when we're going up against each other, when one of us wins, that's a win for the whole community.
Mhm.
Like celebrate that. I know it's in terms of ego, like I get it, we all have ego. It can suck because you want to be the one that gets the job. But also, there's so much positive that comes out of your friends getting jobs. Like, how awesome is it to see your friends succeed, or a fellow Indigenous person
Mhm.
succeed? Because that just leads to more opportunities. So, like, I don't know. I always encourage people to think just because you're going up against each other doesn't mean you have to be facing off against each other.
Yeah.
That person is likely going through the exact same struggles that you are going through. So let's offer love and let's offer support, regardless of who this person is, because you never know, they might turn around and do that for you one day when you really need it. So make friends, not enemies. Trust me, the industry's hard enough. The industry's the enemy. We don't need to make enemies out of each other.
Right. And before we go, we always end with a quick game. So choose a number, one, two, or three, and that'll determine what game we do.
Two.
Two. Number two is called For the First Time, a game of life and career firsts. So, what is the first movie you saw in theaters?
Lord of the Rings.
That's a good one. That just ruined all other movies for you, I'm sure.
I mean, to be honest, what's funny is I didn't even remember it because I was so young.
Oh,
And so for years, I've actually thought that I'd never seen Lord of the Rings. And my mother was so offended when she found out I was saying that. She's like, I took you to the first movies in the cinema. I'm like, I'm sorry. I was so young.
what
Um,
is what was your first ever acting role?
uh, I can't even remember the character. She was like what's that? The narrator. She was the narrator in Troilus and Cressida.
Okay. And what was the first non-acting job you ever had?
Oh, working at a fish and chip shop. I don't know
Oh, really?
obviously I don't know if that's a thing on your side of the world, but basically it's
Oh,
like
yeah, we
a
love
deep
seafood out
fried
here.
food.
Plenty of,
Oh yeah.
yeah, the fish fries.
Yeah. So it was a deep fried yeah, it was a deep fried seafood place. I was 14, I think, determined to be able to make my own money so I could finally buy myself a phone. Took me a while, to be honest, like 2 years.
Yeah. Where was your first flight to?
Wellington, probably, and probably also the flight I've been on the most in my life.
Who's the first person you call when you book a job?
My mum.
And what was the first time you saw yourself on TV?
I don't. I want to. I'm probably wrong because I feel like I was probably on TV doing kapahaka with my performance group, at a really young age. Um, but I think the one that I can remember was Head High, season one, F1, on a giant screen.
Yeah,
It's not okay to see yourself that large. If you can count the amount of nostril hairs that you have, it's too damn big.
that's how I felt when a sh like an indie pilot that I did was screened at a festival, and I never expected to see myself on an actual big screen, and I was like, oh, that's what I look like from this like weird low seated angle.
It's so
So
disorientating. I
bizarre.
know some people are like, oh, I mean, you must love it. And I get it because we're actors. It must be a thing. But it's like, no, in actual
Yeah.
fact, we're just a bunch of fairies who like to play dress up. The actual seeing the stuff parts, it's kind of scary.
Yeah. Editing the podcast, hearing myself back is like nails on a chalkboard. It's torture. Uh,
Gosh.
what was the first time you were starstruck?
Um, oh, oh, um, I don't know. I don't. The one it's not something I really think about. Or even, I don't, yeah, I guess I struggle with the idea of people being celebrities 'cause I'm like, you're human. It's kind of weird.
Right. Especially on
But
a
the
set, it's like
one
that's my
time,
coworker, you know.
yeah, yeah. Well, and it's also that thing where it's like, I think being in the industry, you see celebrities and they're glamorized and they're like they put on these massive pedestals, but I think as fellow actors, we're kind of like, yeah, but at the end of the day, we're still human. Like that's just another fellow fairy creative who's managed to find success and now has all this attention. So it doesn't, yeah, the starstruck thing hasn't happened yet in my own industry.
Right.
I will say though, I recently met this guy who's an influencer here in Aotearoa. His name's Louis Davis. And I'm a mad fan of his Instagram. He just talks about Māori culture and diving and feeding kaimoana to his kids. And me and my sisters all grow up hunting and diving. So he was on the plane opposite me at the Chief of War premiere and he came and did an interview. And I will admit I did fangirl a little bit.
It's funny. I've been to through work and whatnot. I've been to the Critics' Choice Awards, and it's funny. I approach other journalists that I'm a fan of, and they're like, "This is so weird. You're like talking to me when we're surrounded by celebrities." I'm like, "Yeah, but I love your podcast, or I love your show, or I love you're a great writer."
I
Meanwhile, they're
totally get. That's the thing, though. You love fellow creatives.
yeah,
It's not so much starstruck, right?
right. And what is the first audition you ever went on?
And so many, I don't even know. Um, hmm. Oh, I guess my first audition would have been auditioning for drama school.
Okay.
Um, and that was stressful as hell. I think every audition after that was pretty damn stressful. But that one was the worst. Like I'm sitting going, and I'm singing too. I love to sing, but not in front of people.
Yeah.
And so I'm singing, and I'm like, I can literally hear the wobble in my voice. I'm panicking so much. No audition has ever been as scary as that first audition for drama school. Thank God I got in.
And last question, we end every interview with this one. In 10 words or less, what advice would you give to a young actor?
Oh, 10 words. I don't think 10 words or less. Um, I guess trust in yourself.
Love it. Short and sweet. Awesome. Well, Tay, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today. And if anyone wants to give you a follow on social media, where can they find you?
I'm pretty useless at that stuff, but I am getting better. You can find me on Instagram at it's called Tea No Coffee. TEE No Coffee. It's a long story. I'll
I
tell you
love
about
it
it
though.
later.
There's I don't know if I don't know how much you've watched like RuPaul's Drag Race and whatnot, but there's a drag
Love,
queen from the
love.
UK. Her name is Tia Coffee.
What?
She
My
actually
spirit
won the
animal?
most recent like UK versus the world season, which was like returning competitors. But Tia Coffee is so funny, especially when you think in the accent. Like, you want Tia
Oh
Coffee,
my
you know.
gosh. Oh my gosh. I have to research. I have to find her. A fellow fairy, I feel. Name share. Let us be sisters, please.
Awesome. Well, Tia, thank you so much again, and huge congrats on the show. It is such a
Thank you.
for projects like this to even be green that you think that folks want these stories and we do, but it's just it feels like 10 years ago it would have been impossible. So for it to be here now on this scale on a global platform like this is just so cool. And for everyone watching, everyone listening, you can catch new episodes of Chief of War streaming Fridays on Apple TV Plus. Thanks for joining us. Actors with Issues is hosted and produced by Juan Ayala. If you enjoyed today's episode, subscribe to our YouTube channel or on the podcast platform you're listening to. Visit actorswithissues.com for exclusive news and reviews, and give us a follow on Instagram and TikTok at Actors with Issues.